Every morning, millions of Americans swallow a multivitamin believing they're closing the gap between what they eat and what their body actually needs. It feels like insurance, a safety net. But what if I told you that when independent labs tested some of the best-selling multivitamin brands in the country, several didn't even contain what the label promised? I spent weeks going through lab testing data, FDA warning letters, and peer-reviewed research. What I found should change how you shop for supplements forever. Let's start with the numbers, because this isn't guesswork. The supplement industry in the United States generates over $50 billion a year, according to the Council for Responsible Nutrition. And yet, unlike prescription drugs, supplements don't require FDA approval before hitting shelves. The FDA doesn't test them for effectiveness or verify their ingredients before sale. It only steps in after a product causes harm or gets flagged through post-market surveillance. That single fact means the multivitamin bottle in your kitchen may have never been independently verified by anyone before it reached you. That alone is unsettling. But that's only the beginning. Because independent testing organizations exist precisely to fill that gap, and one of the most respected is ConsumerLab.com, a company that has spent over 2 decades purchasing supplements off shelves and testing them in accredited labs. Their reports have repeatedly found that a meaningful percentage of tested multivitamins failed to meet label claims, whether from containing significantly less of a nutrient than advertised, containing contaminants, or failing to dissolve properly within the time frame required for the body to actually absorb the nutrients. Let that last part sink in for a moment. A multivitamin can contain every nutrient it claims in the exact right amount, and still fail you completely if it doesn't break down in your digestive system in time to be absorbed. Some tablets are compressed so tightly for shelf stability that they pass through your body almost entirely intact. You're not deficient because you skipped your vitamins. You're deficient because the pill you took never actually dissolved. What happened next in this investigation surprised even researchers who study this space professionally. In 2018, a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association reviewed years of data on multivitamin and mineral supplements and found no significant evidence that they reduced cardiovascular disease, cancer risk, or early death in the general population. For healthy adults eating a reasonably balanced diet, researchers concluded most multivitamins provided little measurable benefit at all. That single finding sent shockwaves through an industry built almost entirely on the promise of prevention. But here's the twist almost nobody talks about. The problem wasn't necessarily that vitamins don't work. It's that most people don't actually need what generic multivitamins are giving them, while genuinely lacking nutrients those same formulas barely address. The real reason is even more shocking once you understand how these products get formulated in the first place. Many multivitamin companies build their formulas around outdated recommended daily allowance figures, some of which were established decades ago using vastly different diets and population health data than what exists today. Meanwhile, the specific things a huge percentage of Americans are actually low in, like vitamin D and magnesium, are frequently underdosed in standard multivitamin blends because packing in higher amounts of every listed nutrient would make pills too large to swallow. So companies spread nutrients thin across the label to check every box, rather than delivering meaningful amounts of what people are statistically most likely to need. Stay with me, because the biggest revelation is still ahead. I wanted to know which specific categories of multivitamins performed best and worst when it comes to lab-verified accuracy, so I dug into how certification actually works. The most reliable indicator isn't a marketing claim on the front of the bottle. It's a small seal from USP, the United States Pharmacopeia, a nonprofit that independently verifies that a supplement contains what it claims in the amount claimed and dissolves properly within the required time frame. USP verification isn't mandatory, which means most supplement brands never even attempt it, because passing isn't required to sell the product legally. Out of the 10 major multivitamin brands commonly found in American pharmacies and superstores that were evaluated across independent testing data and verification status, only 3 consistently held third-party certification confirming both ingredient accuracy and proper dissolution. The other 7 either lacked independent verification entirely, had inconsistent testing results across different batches, or contained filler ingredients and dosing gaps that made their real-world effectiveness questionable. This is where the emotional weight of the investigation really lands. People aren't lazy or uninformed for trusting a multivitamin label. The entire system is built to look regulated, professional, and medically credible, right down to the packaging design borrowed from pharmaceutical branding. But looking regulated and being independently verified are 2 completely different things, and almost nothing on the front of the bottle tells you which one you're actually holding. So let's talk about what separates the brands that passed from the ones that didn't, because the difference isn't really about price. Nature Made stood out as one of the most consistently verified options, carrying the USP seal across the majority of its product line, something the brand has maintained for years, specifically because it markets heavily toward pharmacy and physician recommendation channels, where verification carries real weight. Centrum, one of the most recognized names in the category, also carries USP verification on many of its core formulas, a result of decades of investment in clinical testing partnerships. Kirkland Signature, Costco's in-house brand, has also earned USP certification on several of its multivitamin products, which partly explains why it consistently outperforms flashier, more expensive competitors in independent lab comparisons. On the other end, several trendy gummy multivitamin brands that dominate social media advertising showed some of the weakest independent verification records. Gummy formulations are inherently harder to standardize because heat and moisture during manufacturing can degrade certain vitamins, especially vitamin A and folate, faster than tablet or capsule forms. Some lab analyses of gummy vitamins have found actual nutrient content dropping meaningfully below label claims well before the printed expiration date, simply due to the format itself, not necessarily poor intent from the manufacturer. That doesn't mean every gummy vitamin is worthless. It means the format itself carries a structural disadvantage that most consumers, especially parents, buying them for kids, are never told about. Here's the bigger pattern this investigation uncovered, and it's the part that reframes everything. The multivitamin industry isn't necessarily lying to you. It's operating inside a regulatory structure that never required proof in the first place. Unlike Europe, where the European Food Safety Authority requires more rigorous pre-market safety assessments for novel supplement ingredients, the American system relies heavily on companies self-policing, with independent labs like ConsumerLab and USP acting as the only real check most consumers will ever see. Dr. Peter Cohen, an internal medicine physician at Harvard Medical School who has spent years researching supplement safety, has published multiple studies documenting cases where supplements contained undisclosed pharmaceutical compounds or dramatically different dosages than labeled. His research doesn't focus specifically on mainstream multivitamins, but it illustrates a broader truth about the industry. When testing isn't mandatory, quality becomes optional, and consumers are left to guess which brands took the extra expensive step of proving what's inside actually matches what's promised outside. So, what should you actually do with this information the next time you're standing in the vitamin aisle? Look for the USP Verified mark first, before anything else on the label. It's a small logo, easy to miss, but it's the single strongest signal that a third party independently confirmed both ingredient accuracy and proper absorption. If a brand doesn't carry it, that doesn't automatically mean it's bad, but it does mean you're trusting the company's own internal claims with no outside verification behind them. Second, be skeptical of massive nutrient lists, boasting 20 or 30 ingredients in one pill. Comprehensive-sounding formulas often mean each individual nutrient is dosed too low to matter, spread thin to make the label look impressive rather than effective. And third, consider whether you actually need a general multivitamin at all, versus targeted supplementation based on an actual blood test. Vitamin D and magnesium deficiencies are common enough in the general population that many doctors now recommend testing first, then supplementing specifically, rather than taking a generic multivitamin and hoping it happens to cover your particular gaps. Here's the lesson buried inside this entire investigation. We've been trained to associate a vitamin bottle with medical authority, assuming shelf placement in a pharmacy means the same rigorous testing applied to the medication next to it. It doesn't. The burden of verification quietly shifted onto consumers decades ago, and most people never realized the shift happened at all. That's not a reason to stop taking multivitamins if they genuinely help you. It's a reason to choose more carefully, checking for independent verification instead of trusting brand recognition or clever packaging alone. The next time you're standing in that aisle, you'll know to flip the bottle over. Look for that small USP seal, and understand that the difference between an effective multivitamin and an expensive placebo often comes down to a certification most people have never even noticed. If this investigation changed how you'll shop for supplements, let me know in the comments which brand surprised you most. And if you want more deep dives uncovering what's really behind the products lining America's shelves, make sure you're subscribed, because this investigation is just getting started.